We are going to talk about a movie.
This is gonna be a disaster.
It was one of the best movies of the year.
It's gonna go so well. Probably one of the last movies I would ever want to see in a theater.
Hello and welcome to 10 Years On. I am your host, Jacob Blunden. This week, on February 5th, 2010, we are looking at the two films released on this day, Dear John and From Paris with Love. But before we get to that, I'd like to introduce my panel. Taylor Robinson, how are you?
I'm fine. Just like both of these movies. Just perfectly fine.
And I'd like to introduce the rest of my panel. Nick, how you going?
Yeah, I'm good. Not like these movies. I don't know. We got another interesting conversation today.
We do. Peter, how you going?
Yeah. Yeah, just plateauing, middle of the road.
All right. Well, I reckon let us kick off with the first film, Dear John, which opened in 2,969 theaters. A romantic drama about a soldier who falls in love for a conservative college student while he's home on leave.
Wait. Before you go any further, what in the hell in this movie would ever suggest she's conservative other than the fact that her parents have a mansion in Charleston, South Carolina? Nothing that ever comes out of her mouth. Ever.
Not her mouth anyway. Sometimes the people that are surrounding her have opinions about the war, but then we're just to assume that she also shares those
Even
same
though
opinions.
we never know her opinions on any of these things.
Do you know why? Because she's a woman in a film in 2010. That's why.
Guys.
This
I
fucking
ain't
movie.
saying shit.
This fucking movie, dude.
What the? Who wrote that?
Probably Nicholas Sparks.
Yeah.
Oh boy! All right.
Wait. Okay. Can we go back to the poster for a second?
Yeah, I was gonna get there. Let's go back to poster talk.
Favorite time of day.
You know what? I actually don't hate this poster.
I don't look. It's somewhat iconic just because of the fact that Dear John has this. We'll get to it later, but it has this kind of cult-like status amongst film nerds just because of what it did.
Yeah.
We'll get to that later, but
I mean,
yeah, like
at least that image is like from the film.
Right.
Yeah, I was going to say that's
right.
You know?
real. Yeah.
And, you know, she looks comfy in the arms of Charming Potato, which, you know, why not?
To me, like, it's not a super cheesy, like, photoshopped romantic.
Yeah.
Like, to me, it's a nice poster.
It kind of sells exactly what the movie is.
Unlike Josh Duhamel, we know where Channing Tatum's looking. And
Well, he's not entirely looking at her, though. I think he's like,
I think they're looking at
I've got
the-
something in my hand and I like it. That sounded so much worse than
so
intended.
good, though. No, that's exactly what it needed to sound
but
like.
look,
you know
at
what?
least
Hey.
at least it's not like a war propaganda. Like he's
That's
in
true.
uniform,
Yeah.
like kind of. I don't know. I think
Yeah.
that would have made me like a little.
And she's conservative, you know.
Yeah, she's like, he's
Guys,
in a war outfit and
she-
she's in a nun.
She wears like shorts and hoodies in this movie. She is not wearing like.
No, she's literally just like an everyday chick in this film. So
I just think that's hilarious.
that's
Oh my
brilliant.
gosh! All right.
this. Yeah, I think that description has just given us stuff to actually talk about for this movie.
Yeah, 'cause we had very little to say about this movie because it's really just there.
Yeah, like
You know, like there's nothing
It's,
like particularly wrong with it. There's just nothing particularly great about it.
I think the thing that bothers me the most about this movie is you have a really good setup of what this movie could be. They have this whirlwind romance. He has to go away and fight in this war. And then you have possibly, arguably, one of the biggest catalysts in American history happen right in the middle of the film. And it still feels like there's no stakes.
Yeah.
yeah.
Like, you have him watching 9/11 happen from some place in the world that we don't know where he is. But he's watching this happen, and she's on campus while this is happening, and then it still feels like
Everyone's
doesn't-
just sort of just non-reaction. Everyone's just like, this is a bad thing. Oh, also, hey, we're still at college. Let's just do this. And the only like little inkling we get is when all the soldiers are like, no, I'm going to stay on my rotation. Like, so it's like, but you're patriotic. We get it.
And
but-
then, you know, like she gets sort of angry that he re-enlists and you're like, why would you expect him not to?
Yeah,
you know?
like they don't use 9/11 as that. They don't use the fact like it feels like it's this is set in 2010 and they're having that discussion.
I think it was
9/11 and they're having that discussion because 9/11 they're having that discussion. It's go, you have to go. Like it's especially considering she's a conservative.
Yeah.
Right. Especially since they're standing having fancy tea in their fancy South Carolina mansion on their ranch.
They would
like,
be, you go, boy.
Yeah,
you go.
like,
they would be doing
fight
that.
for our country.
Yeah,
And,
like
That's bad American. That's an awful American accent.
I love it though. This is the kind of content we're all here for. But like, it's just that's the worst thing about this movie, and I hate. Jacob and I have talked about this a lot of times, but to me, that's one of the biggest flaws a movie can have, where it's just fine because you can't really complain anything's horrible about it, but you can't compliment it either. So it's just like, what do you say? Like, how do you fix it?
And I think because like The Notebook became like, I mean, I think that's one romantic movie that pretty much everyone can agree is like incredibly romantic.
It's like a timeless tale.
And like Ryan Gosling and
yeah.
Rachel McAdams together was like,
for sure.
lightning in a bottle. And so there's probably a little bit of pressure on this because you're like, this is the next Nicholas Sparks one after The Notebook.
Yeah.
And you hired two very pretty people. This was sort of when Channing Tatum was just becoming...
He wasn't peak.
He wasn't
peak
Channing
pretty
Tatum.
yet. Yeah.
no.
But, you know, he'd come off of Step Up, which was like his
Yeah.
entrance. And then like the year after this, he did The Dilemma, which is when it was kind of like, oh, you have got good comedic timing. And 2 years after, Magic Mike, 21 Jump Street was like,
Just
he was
killing
huge.
it, yeah.
And Amanda Seyfried was like coming off of Mamma Mia, Mean Girls. And I think having them together definitely helped the movie because they're pretty much the reason that you
care.
Kind of care. Yeah.
Still, yeah.
like, there's just nothing here.
And to me, that's the biggest. Like, there's a lot in this movie that happens, but also nothing happens.
Yeah.
Like,
It makes an hour 48 feel so
It was long.
Like,
It was long.
So long. And like, first of all, there's that. It feels long and nothing really happens to push any sort of story forward. And then you get to the end where this pretty big thing happens and then you just go, oh?
So
Like...
I had seen this movie before and I didn't remember a single fucking thing that had happened. So I'm watching this all again going, wait, this doesn't happen like this. This doesn't happen. And then the twist happened and I was like, oh, that's why I forgot the rest of this movie, because the one thing that is mildly interesting is literally the last 5 minutes.
Because I remember seeing this film in 2010.
Yeah, I do too.
And my memories of it was, I remember thinking, oh, there was like a huge twist in this because like the letters aren't to her.
Yeah.
And then watching the movie back, I went, oh, that just kind of happened. And I remember thinking, this was not as profound as it should have been, or as I remember it being back then.
Yeah.
Because maybe I was an idiot 10 years ago. I don't know.
I just think that, you know, and that's the other weird thing about this movie is that halfway through it decides, oh no, we're going to tell a different story now. Like it's we're completely dropping the.
They just put her on the back burner.
I was kind of shocked about that, but the fact that they went, oh no, she is a supporting character in this. In
this love story between her and him.
Yeah.
She's a supporting character that's
It's
over
called
there.
Dear John for a reason. Thank you.
And so, and look, I thought Richard Jenkins, again, they all do fine.
Oh, I completely forgot. He was, I watched this literally less than 5 days ago and I forgot he was in. That's how forgettable this movie is.
We literally watched it last night and I'm struggling to remember a lot of things that happened.
Henry Thomas is in it.
Oh, shit.
And he's fine.
Like, that was weird.
so
that was just weird, though. Like,
it was kind of like, oh, we'll set up maybe his character to be a little bit of like conflict for them, and then you're like, he's a really nice guy, and he completely supports their relationship.
But they did the same thing with the guy Scott Porter plays.
Is he like the douchey
He's the
friend?
douchey friend who's
the friend who he likes me, but I'm not his type. It's like,
which made me just go, oh, he's gay. Like, oh, he's gonna get with John. There's your story, Nicholas Sparks.
I was going to say that, but like everything he did in the film seems like that sort of like outward projection of someone who would potentially be closeted. You know what I mean? Like he's like,
or he's like the one that's like going to try and break them up, and then he just doesn't.
He doesn't.
Because
No,
it seems
he
like, oh, maybe
halfway
you're just
through
like
the film.
you're maybe just a friend.
and then he pops up at the mansion again, and then he's like, nah, you know what? You're a good guy. And John's like, wait a second, no, you're a dick. Like, you're an asshole. I'm not going to like do this for you. But he's like, nah, man, it's all good. And I was just like, nothing makes sense right now.
the other thing I found quite fascinating is it kind of sets up that the dad's going to have a bigger role. Like they have this thing where they set up that the dad's going to actually be involved. He's in one scene.
Her dad.
Her dad's going to have a bigger role, and that
Especially the way he introduces himself into the scene.
he's literally in the mansion scene, and that's it. He's like, oh, okay, you just
Classic conservative.
That's exactly what it was. He was like, oh, you're serving the military? You're good enough for my daughter.
Approve. Stamp of approval.
You have all the sex you want with her. God bless America, son. You know what I mean? Like, it was
14 babies for me, please.
all of whom will be military.
Yeah, legit. Conservative military little younglings. It'd be brilliant.
Guys, look, I think that the only reason that we had the chunk of Nicholas Sparks movies we got in the 2010s was because of the timing.
Yeah.
Because Nicholas Sparks literally only writes about rich white people in the South. Like, that's literally all his movies are about.
And apparently he's like a little bit homophobic, and I'm like,
just a tad.
Like, weird, because your movies very much cater to gay people.
Oh god, yeah, it is the most lovey-dovey like fantasy romance in all of his
and
films.
also half-naked Channing Tatum. Yes.
He's probably sitting there writing it going, is like, when this gets adapted to the film, oh, the women will love this. And then literally there's like just like 5 gay dudes outside. It's like, nah, honey, no. Sorry, like pandering to the wrong audience here, Sparky.
But yeah,
guys.
Honey, Sparky players.
It's the right terminology. So I was, sorry. I don't want to culturally appropriate gay people. I'm sorry.
I'm not offended, so therefore we're not offended, right, guys? Right.
Oh, shit.
okay.
Like my career just
Well, we've just made
ended.
Dear John that much more interesting.
With, you know what?
We've actually managed to have a 10-minute conversation about a film. We were
Guys,
terrified
you should let
about
us know if
talking
you
about.
want drunk commentaries as a Patreon exclusive, because
I'm telling you, the movie we talked about doing drunk, we should 100%
Oh, we are
do.
no. Okay, I'm going to put that here. That will be a Patreon exclusive at some point in the future.
That should be a live watching of them.
There is a week where we have to watch Last Airbender and Twilight Eclipse.
I can't wait.
We will be getting very drunk and watching both of those together and recording our reactions because
Tell my mother I love.
that week's going to kill me.
Yeah, God.
all right. Does anyone else have anything?
I have one more note.
Okay.
I have 3 full notes for this movie.
He really does.
Channing Tatum as this like, don't get me angry because I did one thing in my past with my anger that really wasn't, and he hit one dude. Like, come on, like we've all
He had a fight at 17.
Nick, he almost got his eye cut out with a knife.
that. You know what? That is true. I didn't even think of it. I forgot about that as well. But there's like 2 other then points in the movies where it slightly comes back where he's like, people are pushing him and he's like simmering. He's simmering and he punches Scott Porter and everyone's like, how could you do this
Like,
in our wonderful conservative beach where no one punches each other?
How could you, a special forces officer who's getting pissed off by something, possibly?
Who's literally led by aggression. Yeah.
And then has someone jump on the back of him and everyone's like, oh my God, you elbowed him. It's like, yeah,
like,
you snuck up behind a special forces guy. You don't
Who was in the middle of punching somebody else?
Yeah. He's
Like,
You don't creep up on G.I. Joe on a beach.
Man.
Yeah, that was my last note.
Yeah, no,
It was just, we were sitting on his parents' couch watching this, and it was just like, I was just almost falling asleep.
Were the
just
parents
because
watching it too?
yeah.
His dad,
Why'd you put them
his
through
dad
They
loves
love
this
that
movie.
movie.
No.
It's like,
Yeah.
he,
Do they watch these
he
videos?
loves
No.
it.
Okay, I don't want to offend them. I've never met them, but you know, I choose to not offend them to everyone else. I'm offended with the shit I say, but
That's why we like waited.
Yeah, we
because
waited. Yeah, because we were like, oh, we got to watch it. We'll watch it with them because they like this movie. And he was getting annoyed because we were on our phone.
he was like, "Are you guys even watching this movie?
It's like we are.
so good.
It's just so boring.
I've just seen it before, and
Yeah.
like
We have 6 more of these.
six
coming
more
up over the
Nicholas
next-
Sparks movies.
He had
Yeah.
He had another one this year.
But I will personally say, if we end up actually making it to the end of this podcast, the best one is saved for last, in my personal opinion. So I'm really stoked about that.
And I think
Yeah.
that's that's the biggest takeaway I've like from this is looking at the rest of his films, going, you know what? This movie is the least offensive of all of them. Like in terms of it just.
like how it treats its audience.
I don't think you've
Yeah.
seen the last one though.
No, I haven't.
So what's
seen
the
that.
last one?
The
The
choice.
choice.
Oh no, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one yet.
It's something.
Yeah, right.
Dude,
It's like kind of
Teresa
like.
Palmer kills it in that movie.
But I mean, it's kind of like
You
the
could have stopped at
Notebook,
Teresa Palmer kills it.
and then like Dear John, and then you've got like The Lucky One, The Best
I
of
haven't
Me,
seen that one though.
fucking
We'll
Safe
get
Haven.
to Safe Haven because I hate
Dude,
that movie
no,
too.
The Best of Me is still 1,000% worse.
Oh, The Best of Me.
Best of Me's pretty bad.
Oh, but
don't
anyway,
think so.
before this
Yes.
turns into the Nicholas Sparks
Yeah.
podcast,
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah,
get
I'm not
there.
giving you any more airtime, Nicholas Sparks. You hate us.
Oh, guys, I'm pretty confident.
I think
that's
yeah.
Dear John.
I'm happy with that.
All right. Oh,
all right,
God.
let's move
Guys,
on
oh,
to our next.
I'm very
movie.
curious to see what the description is because this poster is just.
We are talking about From Paris with Love, which opened in 2,722 theaters. In Paris, a young employee in the office of a US ambassador hooks up with an American spy looking to stop a terrorist attack in the city.
So,
Wait, this movie's not called From With Paris Love?
And Jonathan Rhys Meyers is John Travolta, and John Travolta is Jonathan Rhys Meyers. I hate when posters do that.
I get that they have to because of billing, but it drives
Yeah.
me nuts.
But you
Also-
could just flip that image.
Yeah.
You could just mirror it so
Yeah.
easily.
It's also not the director of the film. We also have to know that Luc Besson was definitely a part. Like, this movie is Luc Besson through and through, right?
Yeah.
But I love that the movie also, the post has to go, oh, by the way, no one else was really involved except for Luc Besson,
Dude,
who didn't write it or direct
I dig
it.
this IMDb poster.
The IMDb post is cool. That's
That
the cover
is-
on the DVD that I have
Yeah.
at home, yeah.
That is something
I
else.
will try and get that.
Where do those lights on the Eiffel Tower come from? Why
Yeah.
is there these big beaming lights at the top?
When
Is
does
that a
the
real thing?
Tower come into the movie?
I mean, it doesn't,
Like-
but if you have a movie titled From Paris with Love, I mean, I'm assuming you
And I
just
love
gotta...
that when you look at like Dear John and From Paris with Love. From Paris with Love seems like it should be like the romantic movie.
I know. They're sort of, they got the romantic poses going.
And like Dear John should be Dear John Travolta. Stop.
This is going to be a
Dude,
good conversation.
Every time I hear From Paris with Love, all I can think is that, like, my mind goes James Bond movie. Like, my mind
Yeah.
just goes to, like...
It's From Russia with Love.
I
is the
know.
one- is the
So
Or
one
it's
that
like
does it,
the
yeah.
greatest show that Paris Hilton hasn't done yet.
Ooh. Wasn't that the name of her sex tape? Oh, no, it was One Night in Paris.
One
Don't worry.
Night in Paris.
Continue on. Continue on.
Oh,
I haven't
okay.
watched
You're
it,
gonna
Mum,
need
don't
to, like,
stress.
re-control.
I'm going to try and get control of this back.
Because you're supposed to be the host here.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's talk
was
about From Paris with Love. I hated this movie. And it's not the worst one I've seen. It's not terrible. It's just boring and not enjoyable whatsoever.
Well, I kept getting confused by a lot of plot points that didn't quite seem to come together a lot of the time. And then I was also bored, so it was like I'm trying to pay attention to figure out what kind of story they're actually telling, but then I was just like, I just can't. Like, I just,
Yeah.
like, there's nothing actually compelling me to pay attention to this movie, which is so dumb because it's supposed to be this crazy spy thriller in the middle of Paris with all this terrorism and all this, and it's I don't know, like I kept going, did I miss something? Like, why am I not interested? Why am I not understanding like what's going on here? I don't get why there's so much emphasis put on one of them being American when clearly both of them are somehow. Like I don't get, this movie just confuses me. I don't really know what to say, honestly. Like
it's not a good movie.
Would you like to go first?
I think, yeah, it's just like it should have been like big dumb fun, and it was just big and dumb.
Yeah.
And like I know that like a lot of the critics' reactions to it was like, oh, this movie's like it's made so much better because of John Travolta, but he just like he fucked me off in this movie so much. Like he just kept being like, oh, I'm like the cool wild card that you can't trust, and like, am I bad or am I good? You don't know, but I like to shoot and take coke. Like it was just like, oh, just calm down. And also because of like, I just don't buy John Travolta as being like the really the womanizing type.
No,
I'm not going into anything.
Or the action star.
But
to be fair,
it just like when he's running after that woman, Kasnia Smutniak, which is the greatest surname ever. She's running on a rooftop. She looks athletic. John Travolta
does not.
It's not athletic. This was not like peak 70s John Travolta. This was like,
this was.
I dig my hamburgers, John Travolta. Oh, and then they bring in
the
fucking
Royale with cheese.
Because
the best burger in Europe.
Because God forbid we don't like let Travolta forget that the one good thing he did in the last 30 years was fucking Pulp Fiction. Because it was. He was great at that movie.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
Absolutely.
But, and this was like pretty much the last movie he did that got like, I think he did Savages the same year.
No, Savages isn't for another 2 years.
2012.
Yeah.
Well,
maybe
either way,
rough.
This was one of the last movies he did where it was like a proper wide theatrical release. And then he just declined into
the fanatic
straight to video shit.
I mean, technically Gotti got a wide theatrical release. Technically. But
do you know what my here's my story of how I saw Gotti. I watched someone on the plane watch it. I saw 3 scenes. I was like, it makes sense.
Wait, you not one of the people that was like, this movie's the greatest thing ever made, even though there's like 0% on everything.
I know, even though Kevin Connolly of Entourage fame, of which I'm a fan of, I was like, nah, that's not going to bring me to see the movie.
But
But here we are.
This movie I just sat there going, like, I can forgive a movie if there's like a sense of humor to it, or there's at least one performance that like elevates it. Travolta didn't elevate this to me. He just kept exacerbating how fucking bad this movie was.
The thing that told me everything that I ended up really needing to know about how I was going to feel about this film was when we first see the two of them together in the airport. And
the motherfucker scene.
The motherfucker. And then all of a sudden, like, they're going through all this crap, and you're like, okay, so one of them's good guy, one of them's bad guy. That's how this movie's gonna go. Like, one's the loose cannon, and one's gonna try and be whatever. And then they're sitting in the car, and he's like, oh, I needed my wife, my gun here. That's why I made all the trouble in the airport is... It's like
he's trying to out-American the American. He's just like, I smuggled my wife, which is my gun, in energy drink cans in this frog nation. He's like, keeps calling them frogs and shit. That motherfucker scene is so... Okay.
I hated hearing him say it after a while. I'm like, I get it.
Okay, can I just get into the thing that I fucking hated, and every time it was said, I wanted to rip my ears out?
Cocksucker?
No. Caroline.
Oh
Caroline. My God.
Caroline. So speaking about that as well, Jonathan Rhys-Meyers' voice makes me laugh every time he says something. And I know he can't control the tone of his voice, but he talks and I'm just like, with the American accent, I was like, I can't take you seriously. You sound like a Muppet. Like, it worked in Bend It Like Beckham. Like, when he's got his British accent, like, that makes more sense. But obviously he can't do an American accent. He's saying Caroline the whole movie. And yeah, I giggled every time he opened his mouth. This movie's bad.
Yeah, in case we haven't completely got that across.
I liked
Paris
it.
with Love is bad.
I liked it a lot.
That doesn't make any fucking surprise, does it?
No, not at all. This is catering to the part of my brain that is very much so, for lack of a better phrase, extremely dumb. Like, it's the part of me that is like, if I'm going to bed at night and I'm going to put an action movie on, this is the level of intelligence that I want.
Because this movie will put me to sleep.
Yeah, it's coma inducing.
That's a recommendation from Nick.
You want to be put in a coma from Paris? I don't even know the title of this name of this movie. Part of it is Travolta. I get that he's annoying, but I have this affinity for John Travolta. He's partially kind of like my Nicolas Cage as well. I will watch anything they're in because there's something I don't understand about them as people, and I want to find out more. This movie exacerbates that desire to know more so much. It's a bad movie. I think the Chinese restaurant shootout's actually, as frantic as it's cut together, there's some cool elements to it. The amount of explosions are in this movie, I was sitting there going, yes, this is making the quota. And it birthed a solid meme. If we don't forget the meme.
Yeah, I was watching the movie and I was like, and basically that scene's coming, and I tell you, I went, oh shit, the meme's coming.
You remember the meme?
And you were like, wait,
yeah,
what?
the way so it's the dinner with Jonathan Rhys-Meyers and his partner and the other chick. I can't remember how she's involved. And he's asking her questions and he shoots her in the head. Yeah, that was the meme where it was like, he says something, she says something that counters it, he shoots her in the head. It was a 3-panel meme, which was, yeah, it was pretty dank. But, the edgy meme lord I am.
And to show our age, Nick will now talk.
Yeah, yes. Mental age, not biological either. But so there's elements of this movie that cater to what I need.
Tell us how
to
dank
get
it
at.
is.
It's pretty. But you know what? If I had to describe this movie in a word, dank can be taken as it's disgustingly damp and awful. Or it's the edgelord movie. It's the movie that guys on that 4chan would watch and be this is Luc Besson at his peak.
If there was a photograph of the man that people on 4chan aspire to be, it's John Travolta's look in this movie. I'll tell you that right now.
I'm pretty sure Pitbull was like, that's how I want to look. And then John Travolta did full circle and now looks like Pitbull.
Yeah, I know. It's either. How good's that?
I just want to real quick just go back onto actually talking about the review and the movie in terms of the biggest problems with this film. Tonally is all over the fucking place.
Oh, God,
shit,
yeah.
It doesn't know what it wants to be. It doesn't know if it wants to be an over-the-top, crazy, zany, John Wick-esque, it's freaking nuts action film, or if a super serious spy espionage film.
Yeah, and it's and if you chose one lane, could have potentially been halfway decent. Either go balls to the wall and just be absolutely ridiculous, or ground it and be a spy thriller, which it sort of goes, oh, I want to do this, or I want to do this, I want to do this, and
And that's the biggest problem with any film that Luc Besson sort of has, apart from Taken and Leon the Professional, and only the first Taken, by the way. The other two are exactly what is wrong with From Paris with Love. That's his biggest issues, is that he wants to make the film that people will go, ooh, that was a good spy story. But then he also wants people to go, and that had the most batshit crazy action ever. And you can't really mix those. We saw the exact same issue with Edge of Darkness. Yeah. Is that the violence didn't really match the tone of the espionage. So it was, it's a bad movie. Don't get me wrong. I would not recommend this. Yeah. But I like it.
I solid non-recommendation. Let's just go over to the IMDb poster so they can actually see what we were talking about.
Yeah, that's a way cooler poster.
Oh.
It's a bit more aesthetic. It's the blues.
I mean, it very much sets up that Jonathan Rhys-Meyers, I'm the sensible one driving the car, and John Travolta's yeah, I'm gonna blow
rocket launcher,
rocket launcher,
motherfucker.
I love when he pulls that out in the movie.
Yes,
and everyone's just like, what the fuck?
What are you doing? Also, where did it come from?
Where'd you get that?
But I also love how in that scene that the I think she's a senator or she's some high up political person, and her handler goes, oh, we've got a situation. We need to like change course. And she's just like, no. And you're like, oh, okay. You know what? You deserve to get blown up for that. If you're in that higher position and your handler says, we have a situation, you go, get me the fuck out of here.
Yeah, it's like...
But she is literally just like...
She's like, I want everyone fired.
Nah.
Yeah.
Who's dealing with this?
She's like, I'm ready for a gunfight today. Let's have some fun. And then she gets killed. So.
I mean, at least we can say this movie is a little bit more memorable because Dear John, we were like, that's right, that happened. Whereas this, we're like, remember this happened? This happened? Memorable, but still just dog shit.
Yeah. Not a good movie, guys. Don't think anyone here is providing any real recommendation.
Not a strong one.
Nick's recommendation's kind of just if you're drunk
and
you're tired.
Yeah.
Maybe put it on. All right, guys.
right.
So, in limited release films this week, we had Promised Lands, Your One, Frozen, District 13, Ultimatum, Terribly Funny, Terribly Happy, Red Riding, The Year of Our Lord, 1974, Eyes Wide Open, and The Korean. Tell to us about Frozen.
So Frozen, obviously not the beloved Disney classic. It's like a really, really simple horror movie about these three kids who go up on a ski chair. The chair breaks down, the whole thing breaks down. They're stuck up there. And you sort of think, all right, how is that going to make, an 80-minute movie stretch out when you're just watching three people stuck and panic? And yeah, it's just one of those movies that takes this really simple premises and manages to make it really interesting with how it chooses to sort of say, how would you react in that situation? Because obviously you'd want to try and jump, but then you're that high up, and then you're going to either you've got the cold, you've got then turning on each other. It was just like a really surprising little film that I thought, it went straight to video here, not a surprise. And it's kind of one of those ones that you'd look at and probably pass it and go, that looks a bit stupid. But I would recommend it.
The DVD cover we had here was very sort of that passable B grade. Like you look at it and you're like, oh, if I'm renting 5 horror movies, I might put it in the pile, but it's not the one you're going to choose. But I've seen it as well, and I would agree. It's actually, for a small budget horror film, it's actually pretty damn good.
And it's not and it really holds up in terms of violence, because some of it you're like, there's some gory shit in the movie, surprising violence in this movie, and the acting from all the 3 main characters is really good. So it's probably the one that's you should go check it out, because it's
out of everything,
and it's better than what we've seen.
District 13 is also an interesting one, because that was a remake of a foreign film that came out. So
this is
this is the foreign film.
I think District 13 Ultimatum
is the remake of a foreign film, and Paul Walker's in it, if I remember correctly. Which is another film that the foreign version of the movie, which I can't remember what it's called, is actually pretty entertaining. It's a good action movie. It's like a parkour action movie.
I remember Paul Walker.
This is the.
That is the foreign.
Yeah, this is still a foreign.
Because wasn't it Brick Mansions?
Brick Mansions is the remake. Brick Mansions is the remake with Paul Walker. So this one, District 13, is actually pretty entertaining. I would recommend it as well.
Okay. All right, let's move on to box office results, guys. So the reason why Dear John has this cult-like figure amongst film nerds and especially box office nerds is it's the new #1 film of the week. Dear John knocked off Avatar. Avatar is no longer
James Cameron,
the #1 film of the box office.
Power of the Tatum.
Yep. Dear John opened with $30.4 million after first week of release. Avatar, $22.8 million.
That's a big margin.
Yeah. From Paris with Love, 8.15. That's a big margin.
That's what you fucking get.
Motherfucker.
Edge of wow! I even wrote it.
Edge of Tomorrow.
I wrote it as Edge of.
That's written out as Edge of Tomorrow.
Brilliant.
Oh,
Edge of Darkness.
Edge of Darkness made 6.85 million. Tooth Fairy made 6.6.
Woo!
When in Rome made 5.5 million. The Book of Eli made 4.7 million. Crazy Heart made 3.5 million. Legion made 3.4 million, and Sherlock Holmes made 2.5 million.
Has Crazy Heart been in the top 10 this whole
I think
time?
it's
yeah,
traveling
starting
up.
to creep
It's
up.
starting to
Yeah,
It was a
so-
post-Oscar buzz, yeah.
Yeah. So because we will get to that news story.
yeah.
Hello, sorry.
Dropped off from last week. The Lovely Bones dropped from 7th. Guys, Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Yes, I was
has
like,
dropped.
I didn't hear it in the top 10.
Alvin and the
Yes.
Chipmunks, the Squeakle, dropped from 9th, and It's Complicated dropped from 10th.
Jeez.
So you know what? Congratulations from Paris with Love, because you at least got Alvin and the Chipmunks out of the top 10. So
What a
for
run.
that, I give you a minor.
But like, even with think about it, like that's a solid run that movie had
Oh,
at the
yeah.
box
Yeah,
office.
it's
Like,
7 weeks in the top 10. Like,
And like
Jeez.
half of that we've been discussing.
yeah, I know. We've been more excited about that than Avatar. Jesus Christ.
all right, let's move on to the big news stories because there was some pretty big ones this week.
Yeah.
Cowboys and Aliens, directed by Jon Favreau, starring Daniel Craig and Harrison Ford, has been officially dated for July 29th, 2011.
All right. I'm willing to give up all fucking credibility of me reviewing any movies. Cowboys and Aliens is fucking sick. That movie is so good.
Oh, you didn't have credibility.
You lost it. You've lost it. Like
When I read this in our notes this week, I got so excited that I picked up the Blu-ray that I own and was like, I could watch this right now. And if it wasn't for the fact that I had to watch Dear John, I might have watched this movie. This movie gets a lot of flack. And I don't know why, because it is the premise that we all have been looking for. Aliens invade, and we go, let's fight back. But instead of Independence Day, where we have fighter jets to do it, we're just cowboys. We're just cowboys roaming that Wild West. Harrison Ford, Daniel Craig, Jon Favreau directing post Iron Man 2. Oh, I love this movie.
I've seen this movie twice, and I've fallen asleep both times.
You missed
Yeah,
it.
I've only seen it once in the cinema. But you know what was funny? Because I saw this at a preview screening. And you know how when we get invites, how it's always like how many guests you want? And usually it just says 1. Sometimes you get 4. This one, when I hit the menu to do drop down, it went up to like 12 tickets.
I just wanted
So I
loads of
always
people
was
to
like,
see it.
you know what? I'm going to roll the dice on this one. Chose 12 tickets.
Yeah.
Then said, your
Is this
tickets are
correct?
confirmed. So I was like, who wants to come with me to see
Yeah.
this movie?
You are
I ended
Santa
up grabbing
Claus.
like everybody I worked with, and we all sat there. And then thankfully it was kind of one of those things where I went, remember, you didn't pay for it if you didn't like it.
Yeah.
It's okay.
And then they all walked out
And
loving
I have like no recollection of this movie whatsoever. I just remember I remember being disappointed because that premise, it
It's-
should have been
the
like,
premise
to me, I was
is-
like, this
yeah.
is like snakes on a plane. Like, this will be amazing. And it was kind of, I felt like it
Became
took-
Snakes on a Plane.
but I felt like it just took
Oh,
itself.
I'd argue Snakes on a Plane lived up to its anticipation for
Well,
me.
before we turn this into a podcast talking about these other movies that we will get to at some point.
Yes, we will.
I saw just for the record, I saw the trailer for Cowboys and Aliens and went, nah. So that's
Fucking nah.
so that's about all I got to say about that.
Fair.
The next release date set for Battleship is set for Memorial Day weekend in 2012. So there's we will get to this in 2012, but there's a very interesting story around Battleship because we got about 2 months early.
Oh.
Yeah. So Memorial Day weekend is May in the US. We got it in March.
I don't stoop that low.
I
don't like Battleship.
definitely stooped that low. In terms I saw it.
Oh, no, I saw it.
Oh, okay.
I just didn't enjoy it. I have standards.
Yeah, we know, Nick.
Taylor Lautner is cast as Stretch Armstrong.
Wow.
This movie never happened.
Yeah, wow.
Taylor Lautner never happened.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Where is he now?
He's
Apart from doing Adam Sandler movies every now and then.
he did like I know he was doing a TV show called Cuckoo or Cuckoo. But he never really was able to live up to whatever potential he had. I mean, it was really just a case of no one remembered you from the first Twilight movie.
Yeah.
They were either going to replace you or they told you to beef up. He beefed up, and props to him. And that's all he was. You were just the guy that had the good body. And then anything we've seen him in since, you're like, oh, you're not a good actor.
No.
At all. So I understand them casting him as Stretch Armstrong because he would have been the hot property at that time. But I understand why it didn't
Happen.
eventuate.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
We get him next week
So,
in Valentine's Day.
yeah.
Oh yeah, we do too. Yeah. And
That on
the Fox reboot of Daredevil gets a new writer.
Oh,
This is back when Fox had
another one that didn't happen.
yeah.
Yeah.
So back when Fox still had Daredevil. This is just before the Joe Carnahan one, so that does come down later. But yeah, it's,
How are we all feeling about the Ben Affleck Daredevil? Like, how is that received? by
I
all
haven't
of
seen
us?
it since I was younger. But
Yeah,
I mean,
I,
obviously that doesn't change any form of opinion that I might have now. I could have loved it.
I should probably be like, Taylor, Jacob, how did
Yeah.
you feel about
Don't ask me about action movies. I'll defend them till the day I die.
I didn't. I from memory, I've seen this like once, and I can't really remember.
Yeah, I can't
anything about
remember
it.
much from it
Like,
either, but it was just a long time ago. So
Yeah, I remember paying money to see Elektra though.
Oh,
That was dumb.
yeah, that's rough. I was watching a video the other day, and I came across, for some reason, the algorithm on YouTube pushed the Elektra trailer for me, and I watched it, and I was like,
What are you watching?
oh, don't go down that rabbit hole. But I was like so shocked that I was like, even the standard of the trailer was so low, and I was like, I know the movie came out like 2004, 2005, but still, that was pretty. Yeah,
Even
That's
even
rough.
Jennifer Garner, she hates that movie. She
Yeah.
basically said, I didn't want to do this. It was
Yeah.
contractual obligation. And then when you look at, you're like, and you remember it being like, oh, I remember this being a flop. And then you go, oh, this was a flop.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
bad. Like
Yeah.
no one wanted to see it. But
Yeah.
Yeah, so-
And lastly, let's move on to this is the biggest news story. The 82nd Academy Award nominees are announced. So I'm just going to go. Avatar and The Hurt Locker share 9 nominations each. So they had the most. I'm just going to go through the Best Picture nominations. We had, obviously, The Hurt Locker wins.
Yep.
Avatar, Blindside, District 9, An Education, Inglourious Bastards, Precious, A Serious Man, Up, and Up in the Air.
That's
was
a
the
good
first-
list.
Yeah,
This
it
is
is a
a solid
good
list.
list.
That's a really good list.
Yeah.
So this was the first year that they did 10.
Yeah.
So, like,
okay.
this was the first time they'd ever done 10. But that is a really, really...
That's a
I didn't
solid
realize
list.
that Up
Was nominated.
got a nomination. Like, I knew it would have got a Best Animated Picture
Yeah,
nomination.
so-
I didn't realize it got a Best Picture nomination.
Up was the first animated film since Beauty and the Beast to get
Yeah.
nominated for Best Picture.
Yeah,
Up,
okay.
Up was like people were seriously thinking that had a chance.
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
year. Like it was one of those ones where if they didn't do 10 nominees, it probably still would have.
We still would have been in there.
Yeah.
Like that,
okay.
it was one. If that's the level of people going, no, this movie could seriously
I mean,
have a chance.
If Up was not an animated movie, probably would have sweeped a lot of stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
we
That
all know
opening,
the, we all know
I
the
know,
opening.
I
We all know the
know.
opening.
That's
I mean-
also I think one of the biggest not downfalls of the movie, but it sets the opening sets the bar so high.
Yeah.
And then the movie lives up to it. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Up. It's just, it never reaches that level of
Yeah, I think
emotional
that's the
heartbreak.
But you're
biggest
probably also a
issue.
little bit happy because you're like, I don't
I
know
can't
how
go
much
through that
more I can
again.
take.
Especially,
I can't.
Like,
imagine
Jesus.
being a parent who's taking your kids to see it, and you get a whole movie like that first 10 minutes, and
Yeah.
you're kind of like just like holding the kids at the end. It's
Yeah,
like, we're
like-
gonna go now. It's okay.
And you're like, let's go see Paris is Love.
and the kids are just like, the kids are all like, oh, that was cool because it was cute and funny. And you're just sitting there weeping.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
And
You
they'd be
just
like,
like,
in 10 years' time, you'll see this so much differently.
you will understand.
I guess the biggest thing from that as well is like the Hurt Locker beating Avatar as well. Like
Yeah.
I know there was a lot of hype. I know some of the hype was James Cameron v. Catherine Bigelow, but I mean Avatar looked like it was going to be to a general audience, and like for me who was like 15, I was like, oh, Avatar's going to win every award because it's so big, and then Hurt Locker came.
It was
Still.
Fern Gully, really.
Yeah.
So
The one time the Academy doled out the correct justice by giving it to
Right.
Bigelow instead of Cameron.
I love the Hurt Locker. That movie's so good.
Like, yeah, I mean, the director's an interesting list as well. Like, you've got Catherine Bigelow, obviously, James Cameron, Quentin Tarantino for Inglourious Bastards, Lee Daniels for Precious, and Jason Reitman for Up in the Air. Was his
That's huge.
second nomination.
Yeah.
He was the youngest director ever to have 2 nominations. He was then beaten by
Greta?
No, what's his name?
Chazelle?
Chazelle.
Damien Chazelle.
Damien got it. But yeah. Jason was the it. He was the it guy, and then
he had a solid string of movies. Juno, Up in the Air.
He went. Thank you for smoking.
Thank you for smoking.
Thank you for smoking. Juno, Up in the Air, and then Young Adult.
Young Adult as well. Yeah.
4 openings.
And then it was Men, Women, and Children.
Oh yeah, that was
Labor Day first.
Labor Day.
Men, Women, and Children.
Fucking Labor Day.
Yeah, Labor.
Labor's the key word in that movie. Fuck.
Now he's got the new
Ghostbusters.
So, which is funny.
Tully.
Tully's in there as well.
Tully.
Yep, and so is bloody front runner.
Oh, that one broke my heart.
Yeah, that should have been such a better movie. But I mean, look, the Academy Awards. There, it was an.
It's nice to see that, like, the Academy, you do get things correct sometimes.
Yeah,
it does happen occasionally.
Yeah.
Every now
I
and
thought
then,
this was a
10
good
years.
year. It's interesting. Alec Baldwin and Steve Martin were the hosts.
I remember
They
that.
host.
I'm in a full Alec Baldwin thing right now because I'm rewatching 30 Rock.
I
and I'm
love
just like,
30
I'm
Rock is so good.
I am so attracted to Alec Baldwin in that show.
He had like this
I don't even
career
care.
resurgence.
Daddy issues, whatever. He's great.
The other thing I find quite interesting though is, like obviously we got the nominations 3 weeks ago.
Yes.
The awards are next week for us now. But again, we've been talking about that all year, is how it's so early for us this year. I mean, here they don't get it until March 7th.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
obviously they gradually moved it up a little bit because it's always sort of been late February the last few years. Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting. We will again, obviously, actually go through the lists on March 7th in the week that actually comes out, and we'll actually talk and discuss that one. And lastly, let's just cover the Australian release date movies. Precious opened with 14 weeks after US release. Edge of Darkness came out 1 week after release.
You got it.
I did. I actually wrote it correctly too. And Daybreakers came out 5 weeks.
Yeah.
We got Daybreakers 5
That's
weeks.
so weird.
Despite
And
the
it's like,
fact that it was
made
filmed
here, made
up the
by
road.
Australians. Jesus.
It is an Australian film in all but name.
Yeah.
And we got it 5 weeks later.
Jesus.
I reckon nowadays, that would have been either released before or would have been day and date here. Because
It probably would have been a day and date now. But
I mean, it's still, there's a lot of times when it still sucks. Like we were just complaining earlier about Promising Young Woman that we don't get it until quite a bit later.
Yeah.
But in a lot of ways, like progress has been made. It seems
Yeah.
from what we've seen.
We'll see some movies that we get early. We'll see some movies that we get maybe like the week before,
It's
a week
so
later.
varying now.
But then there are some ones that you just go, what the fuck? Like why are we waiting so long?
I thought about it the other day because so we got Uncut Gems on Netflix on Friday. So I watched that, which is basically a month after it came out in theaters in the States, like wide release. And then The Lighthouse we get in not even officially in cinemas till this week.
Yeah.
And it's already out on Blu-ray and digital before Christmas in the States.
Yeah.
So we're still behind on a few things.
It's
marketability, isn't it?
I think The Lighthouse isn't going to cater to.
I'm getting the YouTube ads for it before videos, and it's marketed so differently.
They're
here
they're
to, like, what
hyping
it's-
that up as like
as a horror film.
movie,
Yeah,
and
it's not. It's fantastic.
I mean-
but it's not.
I mean,
it's.
I have a lot to say about that movie, but
I mean, to me, it's interesting though that the type of films. So Precious, okay, kind of makes sense.
Oscar
It's an
movie,
Oscar
yeah.
movie. They literally open it the week of the nomination.
Plus, I also think there seems to be this thing about, like, if there's a movie that's about, like, African Americans or an urban audience, I feel like Australia, like, it's almost like they don't think that Australia is
That we're
going
going
to
to be into it. Yeah.
get into it or react to it as highly. And just like, no, if it's a good movie,
Yeah.
or if, like, it doesn't matter who it's predominantly made about, like, just show
Just
us it.
give us a
We'll
decent
get
movie.
behind it.
Yeah, I do also find it interesting that you're now obviously getting the perspective. Like we all went through it, but you're now getting the actual perspective of.
well, it's just
seeing-
Front
like
row
it's
seat.
just
Yeah.
from like a marketing perspective, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
Like I don't get how that's beneficial to the movie or to
Yeah.
the studio or to the like. It doesn't seem to me like it benefits.
I think it's
anybody.
all like risk factors. So they go like, we can't guarantee this is going to perform in our country because it's happened with movies before. There's been movies that are absolute golden gems that sort of like your indie darlings that just haven't hit here before because we have such a significantly smaller audience.
And it's like, because in a few weeks we'll see Jonah Hex.
Oh,
And I remember that movie had heaps of advertising in Australia.
we were getting
They
it.
were hyping it up.
Yeah.
And then opened in the States, took like no money.
Yeah.
And then it was just like pulled because
Yeah.
they were like, if it hasn't made money in the States, we're not even going to make any of it back in Australia.
So there's no
And also
use,
because Jonah Hex was not a particularly super well-known character, that they were like, all right, let's just, push it straight to video. Whereas you have something like Catwoman, that also flopped, but it was a case of we're still going to release
was
it
it
because
brand
it's
We're
our brand
yeah,
name.
like we'll see that next year with
Yeah.
Green Lantern. Green Lantern came
Yeah.
out in June in the US, made not a great deal of money,
Yeah.
but then came out here in August.
Yeah.
And again,
And people
didn't
still
make-
wanted-
Yeah,
yeah.
like, it
But
still
that's
came
why
out,
it doesn't
yeah.
make sense to me
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
if you know that it didn't perform and people hated Greenland, like they
Yeah.
hated that
and
movie.
it's like we know if like what the reviews say.
Yeah.
So it's like we're gonna.
So then why would,
know.
if you're so worried about risk, why
Yeah.
would you put it out here then?
Yeah.
Like, it's
Yeah.
just things like that where it doesn't make sense to me as an excuse
to
of risk
Yeah.
and reward, because sometimes the numbers are staring you in the face and you still do it. So why is that worth the risk?
Like it was Girls Trip that opened in the States, massive opening weekend, was never on the cards to come out in cinemas here.
Yeah. and
Came out
then-
over there, then all of a sudden it was like, oh, we're going to do a few like pre-screenings to see how it goes, and it was like, release this movie in Australia because the reactions have been amazing. This is
want
a
it, yeah.
funny
But
movie.
that
And then it
actually
came
quite
out and it was
happens
like,
a lot.
Yeah.
Like we got happens with horror a lot because
yes.
I
They-
remember talking to a distributor one year because I actually did a university essay on this, and they were saying, so a film like Sex and the City will pick up 20% of, like, we will get roughly 20% of what the US opens to. So if they open to 100 million, if that open to 100 million, it will roughly open to 20 million here.
Yeah.
And that's roughly what they'll calculate it at. A horror film will do 4 or 5%. Like, it just, we just don't
just
see
don't do
films.
horror.
We just
Yeah.
don't go see horror films. And I
so
remember,
start seeing horror films, people.
Horror
so,
films
like,
are good.
But like last year, Escape Room was one. We weren't getting Escape Room. Like, it was not on the cards. We were never going to get Escape Room. And then it came out in the States. It did pretty well. And within 2 weeks, we had an email going, hey, there's not going to be a screening, but do you want tickets? Like,
Yeah.
it was that. Like,
and
we
Escape
just,
Room
yeah.
was like, it was
I had
fine.
fun with
it was
I had a
fun.
lot
Like,
of
it
fun
took
with
a good.
Escape Room.
It had a good
Yeah.
premise. It like went with it. Yeah.
So it's quite fascinating to me that happens. And then obviously, but then the big horror films, they just go, we have to put it out.
Yeah.
I am going to include that story in a couple of years when we talk about Cabin in the Woods, because that is quite fascinating in Australia. Yeah, the story around Cabin in the Woods. But with that said, I think we might leave that one here. And guys, if you want to play along at home next week, we have Valentine's Day, The Wolfman, and Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief.
Where do we start, you
Oh
guys?
man. Sorry, full title: Percy Jackson and the Olympians. The
The
Lightning
lightning
Thief.
thing. Yeah, there you go.
In Australia, it's not. Thank you
That's
very
okay.
much.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But guys, thank you so much for checking out this week's episode of 10 Years On. I'd like to thank my wonderful panel for joining me. Guys, where can they find you online, Peter?
You can find me online at Twitter at RatedPDG or Rotten Tomatoes Peter Gray.
And Nick.
You can find me on Instagram at NixFlixFix.
And you can find Taylor on her channel here. And you guys can find me at all the various social network sites at Jacob Blunden. And in the links, of course, down in the description below. Until next time, guys, my name is Jacob Blunden, and we will see you then.